Key investors, top executives, global innovators. Join me for in-depth conversations with the biggest newsmakers on the day's top stories.
The economy has been doing well. That does not tell you what the future is going to be.
We are taking a step-by-step approach, a very systematic approach with India.
This is a time to put a little more defense into your portfolio.
Insight with Haslinda Anand, only on Bloomberg.
Right, okay, ready?
David, what initially sparked your interest in this topic of longevity?
15 years ago, I turned 60, and I began to wonder how much longer I'm likely to live and what I could do to extend my life. On longevity, I talked with the leading experts in science and medicine to educate people about how they might be able to change their conduct so that they can live a happier and healthier life. I'm David Rubenstein. Join me on a 4-part journey as I explore the great quest for longevity. Only on Bloomberg.
That's the gift, I think we're giving ourselves.
When you ask Duolingo's CFO, Matt Skaruppa, about his career path, he doesn't just tell you where he's worked and when. He explains what he's learned at each stop along the journey, starting with his college degree in chemical engineering.
Chemical engineering taught me a ton about systems. They're all complex, and when you pull on one thing in a system, it's attached to everything else you find. And then after chemical engineering, I went to Bain, the consulting firm, where I learned the power of pure strategy, but really about how you communicate strategy and how important that communication is to the actual strategy. Following that, I went to KKR, where I learned from the best capital allocators in the world. And what I learned from them was how you identify and then double down on durable businesses. At Goldman, I learned a ton about how you structure deals to maximize option value. And when you put all of that together, that's a pretty good CFO skill set. But it came about because I kept putting myself at the bottom of steep learning curve. And then I found myself at Duolingo at the bottom of another steep learning curve in a company that loves putting people at the bottom of steep learning curves.
Skaruppa also found himself in Pittsburgh, a city historically known more for steel than software. He's come to believe that physical and cultural distance from Silicon Valley has played a role in Duolingo's success.
Luis founded the business here and took a long time before they even thought about monetizing. That only happens in a place where you're removed from the social pressure or you're removed from the way of doing things that everyone else does. And I think that in a complex system, which our business is, where we have a bunch of process improvements that we make, being separated and far apart from the coasts initially really helped us develop that process and compound those gains over time. And I think that's a competitive advantage for us.
CEO Luis von Ahn says he considers Netflix and Spotify models for Duolingo to emulate. But with its emphasis on design, imagination, and style, there's more than a little Apple in Duolingo's appeal to consumers.
Engagement is the number one thing we try to solve for, and we try to do that by making the app joyful and fun. And we have a huge swath of really talented designers that enable us to iterate on that product every day and make it 1% better.
Creating something like that costs money. How do you do that? How do you make it engaging? How do you continue to iterate without breaking the bank?
The reason we have the business model we do in part is so that we have a good amount of cash flow that comes off the business to reinvest in design, because it really is a cycle. We think that the more we can put into making it a wow experience, a truly delightful product experience, the more people will stick around and the more chance we'll have to get more subscription dollars. And once we get those dollars, we can then reinvest in doing that. So it truly is a cycle over time.
Duolingo has increased headcount every year since its IPO, and design is the company's second largest department, behind engineering. It's determined to preserve a brand and culture based on joy and connection, even with its AI-first approach to content creation.
We are using AI in ways to create massively more content than we could otherwise create. Humans are still in the loop. We're still making sure that has an excellent quality to it, but we're about to release about 148 new courses that we weren't able to even think about creating if we didn't have AI available. So it essentially lets us keep costs flat and by orders of magnitude increase the content we create.
How are you using AI when testing the product right now?
We do dog food the lessons a ton internally with our employees, and everyone's expected to use the app and find bugs and do all of that. There are going to be advances in AI that help us to write code better, test that code, these type of things, and we'll implement those over time as well.
Do you A/B test with users too, who are outside the company?
No, for sure. The biggest way we improve the product over time is through our A/B testing methodology. And it's really the core process moat that we have. And what that means is that we are making small changes, testing them on subsets of our users, seeing what wins and what doesn't, and then implementing what wins.
With AI driving faster creation of new content, Duolingo now has more courses to attract more users in more countries.
We think that we can grow in almost every country in the world from here. There are about 2 billion people in the world learning a language. A lot of them are learning English. And we've gotten even better at providing more advanced English content over the past couple years, especially as AI has helped us create that content.
What about China?
China's been a really rapidly growing market for us. It's been relatively small in terms of total number of users, but it is an enormous language market. Not only are there a lot of English learners in the market, but they spend a lot of money on English learning.
Advanced learners outside the US are more likely to become paid subscribers. But that creates pricing challenges, since AI features like Lily cost more, and users in many countries can't easily afford rates charged to US customers.
We try to adjust the price to be more comparable to like a GDP per capita ratio. And then for Max in particular, we set a floor where we want to make a good gross profit dollars per Max subscription. Over time, as the cost of Max comes down, we would expect to have more ability to experiment with the Max price and potentially lower it in regions where that made sense.
Coming up,
Feliz viernes.
Duolingo has nothing against making money. So why do they refuse to show their users more advertising?
When we went public, Luis mentioned that at any given moment, we could dramatically increase our revenue at the drop of a hat by adding more ads. And then he said that he didn't want to do that.
This is Bloomberg.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute geopolitical news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Stephen Engel at Japan's Akasaka Palace in Tokyo, and this is Bloomberg.
The belief for climate change is going down right now. It's going down. And we've tried everything to shame people and blame people and put them in their place and tell them that they're doing things wrong and that they're killing everybody. But if we keep telling them that, then we are going to kill everybody. So we got to figure this out. And we're not going to do it by blaming people who are just trying to wake up and make ends meet every day, especially when a lot of those people have the same connection to nature and the environment that we all share here. I hike and I ski and I love the environment just as much as anybody else, but so does somebody who works in an oil field. The Cabela's shopper and the REI shopper want the same things. They want clean air and they want clean water and they want to be able to recreate outdoors. So until we figure out how to get on the same page, we will continue to lose. We cannot afford to lose anymore. We need to build a winning coalition of people across the political spectrum, or we will never create the solutions that we need.
Technology is embedded in every aspect of our lives.
And laying the foundation for the future.
From finance to defense, AI to entertainment.
And from the road to the stars. Bloomberg brings you the latest stories of the people and companies pushing the tech sector to new frontiers.
And the politics that shape global tech markets.
I'm Caroline Hyde in New York.
And I'm Ed Ludlow in San Francisco.
Watch Bloomberg Tech every weekday.
Only on Bloomberg Television.
At a time when policy in Washington is driving Wall Street, we draw a distinction between the rhetoric and the action, bringing you market-moving guests and original reporting. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
U.S. jobs numbers are released. Bloomberg has the report under surveillance with crucial data and expert analysis at terminal speed. Nobody covers jobs day like Bloomberg.
Duolingo has steadily grown both users and revenue since going public in 2021. It's turned a profit in each of the last 2 full years. The company's stock has surged in the last 12 months, even as it resists the urge to pull some levers that would drive short-term growth.
There is a nice confluence between the long-term investor and what we're trying to do. We have an operating principle that's in our handbook, take the long view. When we went public, we put a timeline up on the screen for the whole company in an all-hands meeting. And that timeline went from founding to 100 years out. And the IPO was one dot in 1 year on that timeline. And we tried to orient the employees to, this is a wonderful event, this IPO. It's fantastic, but it's a moment in time on a very long journey.
This is a company that you want to exist in 100 years.
We do.
Wall Street doesn't think in.
No, they think in like hours. Yeah. And what I've learned of Wall Street, and particularly Wall Street investors, when they say they are long-term investors, that means they'll keep your stock for like a month. There has been one instance where I did something that was just for short-term stock, and I felt so bad about it that I don't think I'll do it again.
What was that?
There was one quarter, a few quarters ago, we were not going to beat the quarter. We were going to probably just hit it. And so far, we beat every quarter. So we were all like, wait, what? Our perfect record. We're like a 4.0 student that is going to get a B for the first time. This is not good. And I decided that for a short period of time, at the end of a lesson in our app, we would show 2 ads instead of 1. Turns out that by itself was good enough to beat the quarter, but it's bad for the product. It's not good. And after that, I never doing that again.
While Duolingo's overall revenues have soared, revenue growth from ads has been relatively modest. Wall Street may just have to learn to live with it.
You must be tempted to just show a few more ads and bring in some more revenue from that free tier.
When we went public, Luis mentioned that at any given moment, on any given day, in any given hour, we could dramatically increase our revenue at the drop of a hat by adding more ads. And then he said that he didn't want to do that.
Do you foresee that view shifts at all in the next few years? I mean, there was a time when people said Netflix will never do ads.
I've learned enough as a public company CFO to never say never. However, Luis is the most hands-on CEO I've ever seen or worked with. While he's around, I do not see that changing.
But there are some changes to keep an eye on. Duolingo has offered lessons in music and math since 2023, and it's now rolling out a chess course.
We really do want to be an app that teaches, most subjects that take a long time to learn. We're not going to be teaching you how to fix your faucet that you can probably do on YouTube, but if it's something that takes a long time to learn, we want to be teaching that to you. We're starting with math and music, but we're probably going to add many other things.
It makes a ton of sense that math and music are the next adjacencies that we would look at, because they're very much in keeping with how you learn a language. You have to repeat it frequently, and it follows a set of structured rules.
How much capital will they require to be built out?
It will depend on how much they grow and how successful they are, and we'll make those decisions over time iteratively.
What about margins? How should investors think about margins on those products?
They're part of the main app, and that means they're part of the main subscriptions, and so their fundamental base is not a different margin profile. Some of them will have different marginal costs or this or that, but over time, we have been consistent that we like our high gross margin business, and we're going to try to endeavor to keep it.
Matt Skarupa models Duolingo's first principle, take the long view, in everything he does as CFO. So I asked him what he sees when he trains his binoculars on the future.
What's the opportunity in the next decade for Duolingo that most excites you?
To fundamentally make our app much more like a human tutor in your pocket.
What's the challenge for Duolingo that keeps you up at night?
How to keep our employees, who are incredibly talented, incredibly craft-oriented and design-oriented, motivated and excited and engaged in the long-term mission.
How do you see your role as CFO changing over the next 10 years?
I think the role of the CFO is going to change a lot over the next 10 years as we automate so much more of the manual work that goes on. And I think that will free up CFOs, controllers, heads of FP&A to do more high-level strategic thinking. And so the real job will become, how do we make sure we're staying at the leading edge of all of the strategic questions that we can bring our expertise to bear on in the company when we're removed from some of the more manual tasks.
What's the skill set or an area of knowledge that you would advise every aspiring CFO to develop?
If I were not a CFO, public company CFO, in a different life, I would love to have been a poet. And so I think that aspiring CFOs need to realize that they're interacting with humans every day. And humans have a variety of motivations and interests and fears and compulsions. So I would do anything you could to become better at understanding other people. Poetry is a great way to do that.
Complete this sentence. The hardest part about being a CFO is?
The hardest part about being a CFO is the fact that there are so many tasks and context switches that you have to make, and the job is so systematic that making sure that you're on top of all of that and thinking about it from a systems perspective and not a one-off perspective is the hardest part.
A friend calls you up and says, I've got great news. I've been promoted to CFO. You say congratulations. What's the first piece of advice you give them?
Make sure that you understand the hopes and fears of your CEO, because that's going to determine the strategy, and you need to be aligned with that. And the first part of alignment is understanding.
I'm Tim Stenevec. This is Bloomberg.
Asia's not sitting around waiting for politics to dictate what's important here. It has already been a leader and is continuing to be so.
People come to me and say, well, you know, Trump's been, you know, sort of saying, well, you know, we shouldn't be focused on this, but yet the corporate world knows that it needs to support this.
Asia's role in global supply chain allows it to influence the transition in ways that many other regions cannot.
All the companies that I've been talking to they have not stopped the work of looking through their supply chains with ESG in mind, because that is just where the puck is going.
Our focus is really to understand what are the technologies that are part of our portfolio for the future and scaling those technologies so that we can meet our demand with clean energy.
Resiliency is just not an operational response to what is happening out there. Resiliency could and will be a strategic advantage that companies will start to look at.
There is still hope to actually get back down to something of a livable world if we get our act together.
It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. We'll show you what's happening in ETFs like no one else. ETF IQ, only on Bloomberg.
Morning, this is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. I'm Tom McKenzie in London. These are the stories that set your agenda.
Taking you from the U.S. markets close to the overnight session in Asia, we'll walk you through what you need to know to kickstart Europe's trading day. Live from our European headquarters, we bring you the day's top market-moving stories, unmatched expert analysis, and on-the-ground reporting from across the continent. Tune in to Daybreak Europe, only on Bloomberg Television. Context changes everything.
Know how the market day started.
Find out how it finishes.
Public markets to private markets.
From the micro to the macro.
Covering retail, entertainment, the business of sports.
The supply chains, trade policy, how it all is impacting the U.S. equity market as we drive to the closing bell at 4 p.m.
A holistic approach to covering financial markets.
If it matters to your life, we're covering it. I'm Katie Greifeld.
And I'm Romaine Bostic, and this is The Close.
Live every weekday.
Only on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
Remember, before dialing, listen for dial tone.
It's not like he was proposing to bring back the rotary phone. But when John Stankey became AT&T's chief executive officer in 2020, he sensed the company had strayed a little too far from its roots.
There clearly was a need, based on kind of where the investor base was and where performance was, to take a step back and say it was time to maybe simplify the business and get it more focused.
America's oldest telecom had grown into a sprawling media and communications giant with the heaviest debt load of any non-financial company in the world. To turn around, it had to slim down.
And when the decision was made that we needed to focus, we started to ask ourselves, well, how do we compete? What are the things we need to do?
What he concluded very quickly is, if we want to be the very best connectivity company, we can't half-step it. We have to lean in. We have to invest a lot more.
Connectivity may not be as sexy as Hollywood, but it's been AT&T's core business since the days of Ma Bell. Stankey needed a partner to help rebuild that legacy on a foundation of new technology. He asked Pascal Desroches to be his CFO.
I said yes right away, but I recognized the enormity of the challenge ahead of us.
When you got here and you looked under the hood, were you surprised
by the enormity of it? Were you sort of overwhelmed, or did you feel like, all right, I got this right away?
I did not think I had this all the way. You come in, you have a sense for what the issues are, but until you're actually in the seat and really learning firsthand the depth of the problem and the complexity of the problems, it's hard to fully appreciate.
He dug into them piece by piece and day by day.
One of the things that I think I do very well, I'm pretty good at not making problems bigger than they are. I'm a believer you try to make progress on big problems every day, and ultimately you look back and say, hey, you've come a long way.
AT&T has come a long way since Stanky and Desroches teamed up. It's gone from a lumbering, over-leveraged company to a darling of the AI revolution.
That first 18 months was trying to right-size the balance sheet and also making sure we were, at the same time, investing significantly in the businesses to get growth going again. A lot more of my time now is spent on working hand in hand with the operators and making sure I'm giving them resources that they need to execute on the strategic priorities.
Everything in our business is a team sport. It's an operating business. And I saw in Pascal somebody who'd be a really collaborative CFO, somebody who's going to work well with the team and make everybody kind of elevate.
Pascal Desroches brings much more than a head for numbers to the CFO role.
By always looking externally, it allows you to make sure that we are at our very best.
Call it a flair for connectivity.
I've been really blessed. I have such a great team.
He is incredibly patient and has a gift to be able to repeat and tell people things multiple times so that they can build their understanding.
We have honest discussions about what's going well, what's not going well, and we're really transparent about what we're trying to do. Early on, there were skeptics, but over time we were consistent in communicating, this is our North Star, this is what we're trying to do, this is why we think we are on the right track. Over time, we've built an enormous amount of trust. Right now, we're seeing a lot of the benefits of it.
Over the last 5 years, AT&T has grown leaner by design, selling Warner Media and DirecTV, and using the proceeds to strengthen its 5G wireless and fiber broadband capacity. No company has invested more capital into U.S. connectivity infrastructure in this decade. Now it's poised to satisfy soaring demand for higher bandwidth and faster speeds.
We have our broadband or fiber product. We have our fixed wireless product, which is basically internet using our wireless network. And then you have your traditional wireless.
Why fiber?
It has the fastest speed. It has the lowest cost to maintain relative to your traditional copper, which is what we're upgrading.
Beauty of fiber, it's symmetrical. It sends the same amount of data up as it sends down. And so it was betting on that kind of capable infrastructure was going to be necessary for the AI economy.
I think fiber future-proofs your network. It took about 20 years for the United States to see about half of its households built out with fiber. We're going to see that 50% go to 80% in about 5 years. We don't see any other technology that will set your network up better for long-term bandwidth consumption.
Fiber provides the lowest unit economic cost, and 5G provides the lowest economic cost for wireless. We are the only company that has scaled networks in both fiber and wireless. We think this is going to be a natural cost advantage, allowing us to drive not only the best economics for ourselves, but also drive the best value for consumers.
AT&T has a decisive edge in fiber subscribers over competitors Verizon and T-Mobile. It trails its rivals in wireless subscribers.
Right now with fiber, AT&T is the clear leader. When it comes to wireless, AT&T is not number one. Does that matter?
Well, look, I don't like being number 3 in anything. So let's start with that. I look at share of service revenue, And we've been making really good progress the last few years under John's leadership in growing our share service revenue.
What we're geared toward is to get the highest share of wallet in the industry. And maybe some of it comes from fixed and maybe some of it from wireless. And we may not be the number one handset purveyor or the number one broadband purveyor, but the question is our total spend in the industry at the highest level? And that's really the strategy we're pursuing right now.
The bet on fiber is expected to pay off in double-digit growth on the consumer side. At the same time, Desroches is working to take AT&T's legacy copper network offline and get its cost off the books.
Right now we are running both a copper network and a fiber network. Our copper is declining, but there is a certain element of fixed cost associated with it, about $6 billion of total expenses. That will, over time, decline to zero. But it's going to take some time. Our goal is by the end of the decade, by the end of 2029, to be out of the copper business.
Copper is sort of an interesting substance because it's also a commodity. Are you selling it? Are you going into the commodity trade?
Believe it or not, we are, as we are decommissioning parts of our network, our copper network, we are selling it, and it's been, with the prices today, it's pretty attractive. We have a lot of copper still in the ground, and at these prices, we will make a return on those.
Every little bit helps for a CFO who plans to spend about $22 billion in CapEx in each of the next 3 years. While some companies pump the brakes on investment in an uncertain economy, that's not really an option for AT&T.
Let me break down our CapEx into the buckets that we spend. A big part of it is to expand our reach of fiber. You cannot wait until there is certainty to build that. These have long lead times that require you to have conviction about where demand is going. Another bucket is, as more people are on our network, we also have to add more coverage and capacity. It's almost like a variable expense. Third, we are modernizing our wireless network right now. Through the investments we're making, we are driving down our unit costs over time and providing more capacity to serve the demand that we think is coming.
Do you have less confidence in that 3-year plan now than when you first came out with it, given that some people are having trouble deciding how things are going to look in the next 3 days?
No, I really don't. I look at the nature of our business. It doesn't matter the economic cycle. This is a critical goods or service, and we have every confidence demand for it will remain. Will it be harder in a more challenged economic environment if that ends up being the case? Of course, but remember, we are investing at record levels. Slight moderations of that would allow us to deliver a lot more incremental cash to the bottom line. So I have every confidence we're going to be able to deliver our guidance.
That guidance includes returning $40 billion to shareholders through dividends and buybacks.
The last several years, we've invested significantly and haven't raised the dividend, so we thought an important next step was to deliver even more value through a stock buyback.
Why is now the time to do buybacks?
I think our stock is so incredibly attractively priced, and so by buying back more, we're giving more value to those who remain, and we are confident in our ability to continue to increase the price of our stock.
AT&T has the cash to reward shareholders, largely thanks to Desroches' management of its balance sheet. The company has steadily pared down its debt. Now it can focus on investing for growth and even lever back up for M&A.
Is the threshold higher to buy something that looks attractive? At this point, given that financing costs are so much higher, should you tap the debt markets again?
Financing costs are higher than they were the last 5 years, but I've been around business long enough to know that financing costs can be a lot higher than this. I'll give you an example. At the end of March, we went out to the market, issued 10-year notes. The effective cost of that was about 5.2% pre-tax. For a business our size and scale, when you add the tax benefits, it's still a very low cost of capital.
As the competition for connectivity intensifies, so has the appetite for deals among the industry's major players.
There are 3 national wireless carriers in the U.S., And that's really been created through consolidation that's taken place over many years. As a wireless company, by definition, you compete in the whole country. In the fiber business, it's a regional, semi-national business. And so the more you can scale up your fiber business, the better you can compete with fixed wireless, obviously the incumbents in cable. And so that's been, I think, the motivating factor around a lot of this M&A activity.
In May 2025, AT&T joined the fray when it agreed to buy Lumen Technologies' consumer fiber business.
We're picking up about 4.5 million active homes that have been passed and connected in a footprint that can probably grow to close to 10 million homes that are attractive to invest in. We'll go from 50 million U.S. households passed with fiber by 2030 to 60 million U.S. households passed with fiber by 2030, and probably tops out around 70 million after 2030.
Pascal Desroches says that when future opportunities arise, he'll be ready and able to pursue them.
Some of those opportunities may be invest more in our business because we know that we're very familiar with the returns, but it's really having that flexibility that's so critically important, because now we can take advantage of opportunities without having to worry about our balance sheet.
Coming up, Pascal Desroches takes me to the room where connectivity happens.
Think about it as the brains of the network.
A visit to the central office next. This is Bloomberg. AT&T's CFO Pascal Desroches doesn't shy away from a challenge. He's been meeting them all his life, starting as a young child when his family emigrated to the U.S. from Haiti.
I remember going to school and not knowing the language and having to work really hard to get the language and the lessons, and seeing my parents work really hard. Honestly, it drives me to this day, their sacrifices that they made to position us to come to this country.
Desroches started his career in accounting, rising to partner at KPMG. He also spent 2 years in government as a professional accounting fellow at the SEC. Shifting to the corporate world, he spent 15 years in finance roles at Time Warner, before landing his first CFO position at Turner Broadcasting. After a stint as CFO of Warner Media Group, he moved into his current job at AT&T.
I want to be as knowledgeable as possible. I'm constantly pushing myself to be uncomfortable.
What would you say you've taken from each of the experiences, from government, from accounting, from big corporations?
What you learn is this: it's always hard when you start. You've got to be patient with yourself. You learn resilience. If you go through a lot of different environments, a lot of different challenges, you build resilience. And probably that is probably the one thing I would say that has really helped me in my latest assignment is the resilience that I've built up over the years.
His resilience and zest for learning makes Pascal Desroches
今日咧有 Amberley 有新機啊，就係呢部 RG 477V 啊。如果大家仲記得部477M 嘅話咧，呢部係 V 打動嘅 Game Boy 模式。我哋今日一齊開箱睇睇。好啦，就係呢個啦。我呢部咧就係 Retro Grey 嘅灰色嚟嘅，咁佢仲有個黑色嘅，好得意啊！有時 Amberley 我真係唔知佢諗乜㗎。呢啲高階啲嘅機咧，佢反而係得2隻色揀喎。反而啲細機咧玩味多啲，先多啲顏色喎。不過唔緊要嘅，我咁啱就係中意灰色呢隻，因為似翻啲 Game Boy。哇！就咁攞部機睇落幾大部下喎，因為個 screen 都真係唔細。睇睇仲有啲乜先？背面就有條線啦 ，Type C 線啦，非常飛着，唔錯，都係有呢個 Amberley 嘅 logo 喺條拉鏈度。如果個 logo 咧個字咧可以再細啲咧，就更加好啦。咁啊，感覺會更加高級另外。OK， 好啦，咁搣咗呢個。嘢先，呢個呢塊膠先。 即時俾大家睇下對比下先，477M 個 screen 其實係一樣 size 嘅，應該係咁啊，同樣啦，佢個型號係 RG477啊嘛，咁所以咧基本上咧同部 RG477M 咧 spec 啊，所有嘢都係一樣嘅，亦都係有8GB RAM、128GB ROM 同埋12GB 256GB ROM 嘅選擇，係啦，咁我哋睇下啲掣先。嗱，佢嘅十字掣咧就同部 M 咧有少少分別，佢冇咗上下左右嗰啲紋嘅，所以佢呢個係用啲滑，感覺滑少少嘅。咁啊 ABXY 掣都係一樣啊，個感覺一樣，係啦。咁啊搖桿 size 一樣嘅，一樣啊，感覺分別，佢冇咗上下左右。佢嘅十字掣咧就同部 M 咧有少少分別。佢冇咗上下左右嗰啲紋嘅，所以佢呢個係用啲滑，感覺滑少少嘅。咁啊 ABXY 掣都係一樣啊，個感覺一樣，係啦。咁啊搖桿 size 一樣嘅，但係咧因為
hours, and it also allows for 27-watt fast charge. And because it's an aluminum handheld with a larger screen, it is pretty heavy. It's 355 grams or 12.5 ounces. As far as connectivity, we've got Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.3, and it does have a 3.5mm headphone jack. And then finally, it is running Android 14 and has USB-C video out, and it can charge at the same time. Now, Anbernic has not officially announced their price and release date, but there was a leak on one of the Discord servers that just kind of blew up everywhere, and so we have a lot of the information now. I was able to get confirmation from the company that the dates that they had in that leak were not accurate. It's actually going to be coming out on August 2nd, and there will be no pre-order period, so as soon as you order it, they should be able to ship it. Like with all their devices, they'll have an early bird period of 72 hours where it'll be a little bit cheaper. So the starting price at that point will be $220 for the 8GB model or $270 for the 12GB model. Once that period ends, the MSRP is going to be $240 and $290 respectively, and so from then on you'll probably have to wait for sales to get it back down to that early bird price. One thing to bear in mind that all of these prices are before shipping, and so it's usually about $10 to $20 depending on where you're living, in addition to this price you see here. So number one, yeah, this is an expensive handheld, but the prices are aligned to the RG557, which came out earlier with the same processor. So I'm not super surprised by it, and the fact that it has a metal shell, that often will drive up the price as well. Now, if you're wondering whether or not to get the 8 or 12GB model, I think that for emulation, especially the platforms that do the best with this particular chipset and this form factor, I think that 8GB is going to be plenty of RAM. If you really want to push it with things like Switch emulation or maybe try out things like Win later, then I could see the 12GB having a purpose, but as I'll show throughout this video, I'm not really sure those are the best use cases for this device anyway. And so personally, if I was to buy one of these models, it would be the 8GB version, unless I really wanted to have additional internal storage. Now, the model we're looking at here today is a review unit sent over from Anbernic, but like with all my videos, all opinions are my own, no money was exchanged in any way, and they're not going to see this video ahead of time. And they've got two color options, one called Silver Blade and Chocolate Bronze. I have the silver one, obviously, and they also sent the 12GB model. But like I mentioned, I haven't seen any bottlenecks when it comes to RAM, and so I think that 8GB will be just good enough when it comes to emulation. Now, inside the box, we've got the handheld itself and a couple other surprises underneath. In addition to your standard stuff like a charging cable and a quick start guide, they've also got a screen protector and then also a rubber casing. And so this is what it looks like with this rubber casing around it, and it doesn't provide like any additional ergonomics or whatever, but it does make it a little bit grippier, but personally I like the feel of the metal. So let's talk about the handheld as it is. So first impressions here, this thing feels very sleek and premium and very Anbernic. To me, this is like the quintessential Anbernic handheld, this form factor and this kind of candy bar shape and these inline shoulder buttons, rubber pads on the back. All of it is very familiar. It reminds me of some of the very first handhelds from them I ever owned. I'm not particularly sold on this color. It feels kind of unfinished, like they just took it right off the press where they had it machine made or whatever, and then they just slapped everything else on it. I kind of wish that it had a little bit of a different color or alloy to it. Now, personally, I've learned to live with this kind of raw look, but if you want something that's a little bit more refined, then maybe the chocolate bronze one will be a better fit. Now, because we have a much larger screen, 4.7 inches versus 4, we do have a larger device, and I think that makes sense. I'm personally amazed that the thickness between the two is almost identical. The new one is a little bit thicker, but it's just really splitting hairs. Another key difference is the new one has a D-pad-centric layout, which I think is actually a really good move. That was one of my minor complaints about the original 405M, was that it was analog stick centric, but I found myself mostly playing D-pad games with it. So this one kind of remedies that, and I think it's a good fit for the majority of the games that you will probably be playing on this handheld. And then finally, my last impression here was that the device is surprisingly sharp along the edges. Now, it is rounded along the sides, you can see that here, and it does look and feel good, but you can also see that there's a bit of a cutoff here, like there's a panel, and then it just kind of cuts off and then gets to the rounded part. So it's not a seamless transition. If you look at the original 405M, you can see that the roundedness is a bit more seamless. And so I appreciate this one more. It feels a little...
The ideal CFO for AT&T.
But there was still a lot of space in the building as well as adjacent land that we were able to sell at a really attractive price because we had scaled down our investment in copper.
Fiber doesn't just take up less space, it increases efficiency at every level.
For each one of these fiber cables, they snake back to a neighborhood. Each strand of fiber has several customers on it. It has a lot more capacity. Fiber consumes 70% less energy than copper. Similarly, the maintenance profile of fiber is so much better. We spend 35% less on maintaining fiber. So it's a win-win. It's a better product and less maintenance, less energy draw.
Right now, there are more than 4,500 central offices across the U.S. AT&T intends to cut that number down by the end of the decade, but the ones that remain will still play a critical role in the business.
It's really important that you have points of aggregation to ensure that you are touching as many endpoints across the country as possible. So yes, it's expensive to have them, but they also give you enormous reach across the country.
Coming up, how tariffs could hit the telecom sector. It's just one more thing Pascal Desroches is keeping his eye on.
Anything that can impact the consumer's ability to afford services, you always pay attention to.
This is Bloomberg.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute global news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Jemana Bersachi in Beirut, and this is Bloomberg.
We have two crises, two essential crises, and for both it's now or never: democracy and climate, and they are absolutely interlinked. And we have to solve them together. We're losing the democratic infrastructure and norms to deal with the climate, and we're losing the climate stability that is essential for a democracy. We have to solve them together. We've never faced a threat like this to our democracy at a time when it's a perfect storm, at a time when we're being told by climate scientists, some of you may be in this room, that we have to cut our emissions, fossil fuel emissions, in half in 5 years now. You know, when I started to realize what was happening, it was 12 years, and we haven't done it.
Africa, a region rife with potential for growth and opportunities, but not without its challenges. Bloomberg highlights the biggest stories, interviewing key players, and reporting on the issues impacting the region. Join us as we get to the heart of African business, politics, and economics, and ask the question, what's next? I'm Jennifer Zabasaja, and this is Next Africa. New episodes every month, only on Bloomberg.
From the world of politics to the world of business, Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lines deliver news, insight, and analysis live 2 times a day, every trading day. Balance of Power at 1 and 5 Eastern, only on Bloomberg.
Join me each week on Wall Street Week for stories of capitalism from business, markets, economics, tech, and climate. More than what you need to know, it's what you need to think about.
AT&T began this decade as a hybrid telecommunications and media company, saddled with debt and spinning its wheels. Since then, it's reduced its leverage and tightened its focus, concentrating its efforts on fiber and 5G wireless connectivity. But recently, tariff threats from the Trump administration have raised the specter of higher prices for mobile devices, which could create headwinds for service providers.
The telecom industry is less exposed to a lot of these tariff-related concerns and uncertainties that we see in other parts of the broader economy and certainly the public equity markets. Of course, no one's immune.
Anything that can impact the consumer's ability to afford services, you always pay attention to. As you know, the devices, we are a reseller of the devices. We provide a certain measure of subsidy, recognizing that that subsidy will attract consumers to our business. We don't expect that we're going to pick up an additional subsidy because there's a tariff on the phones.
We've been in a very record low handset upgrade environment in this country for a long time. People are keeping their phones 4 or 5 years now. What we worry about on the macro side is really the health of the consumer. This industry, broadly speaking, has about 500 million customer connections. I don't know if there's an industry that touches consumers with more scale than the US telecom industry. So to the extent we see the US consumer come under pressure, that's something we worry about, frankly, more than tariffs.
AT&T's leaders recognize there will be no room for complacency in the competition for customers.
I'm not satisfied as to where our company is down in markets that are a bit more price sensitive. We've had a long legacy of being a high quality provider, that we invest in our business for reliability. But if we really want to achieve our goal of being the share leader for spend, we are going to have to be more effective in price sensitive segments. They often say disruption comes from the bottom. So if you're not doing really well in some of those segments that are more price sensitive, more value oriented, you open yourself up for disruption at the top, and I don't want to be one of those companies where that happens.
Given how critical our service is, there's a certain threshold of reliability and quality that you need to have in order to really be in this business. We expect over the next 5 years for demand for connectivity to grow 80%. Because we are investing in the very best technologies, we can meet that demand with our existing infrastructure and be in a position to provide the very best value. So I think both are important. You need both a high quality network and the ability to drive a good value proposition for the consumer.
Pascal Desroches brings confidence grounded in deep experience to his job as AT&T's CFO. At a moment when the economy is full of noise, he's locked in on the signal. I asked him what he sees when he looks ahead.
What's the opportunity for AT&T in the next decade that most excites you?
Every technology innovation will be reliant upon great connectivity. And AT&T, our goal would be to be the very best connectivity company, and I think we're well on our way.
What's the challenge for AT&T in the next decade that keeps you up at night?
I think more and more we're going to have to be able to differentiate our products and services from that of our major peers. I think we have great products and services, so do they. I think we need to make step function changes to really help distance ourselves from the pack, because we've been investing to make sure we are better positioned than anyone to do that. Whether it is personalization, whether it is trying to make sure that your connectivity is secure, whether it is to make sure that we are giving you the ability to have parental monitoring, all things that I think we are capable of, that we think it's just going to be time, and I'm really excited about it.
What's the skill set or area of knowledge that you would advise every aspiring CFO to develop?
Psychology. I say that half tongue in cheek. I think when you are a key member in allocating resources to the organization, you have to have a measure of emotional intelligence that I don't think is often talked about. The ability to be empathetic, to listen, to understand where someone's coming from. It's so incredibly important to build the trust that people will come to you with problems, that you know about problems early and you can help them solve them.
Complete this sentence.
Okay.
Don't worry. Complete this sentence. The hardest part of being a CFO is
managing the unexpected.
That's good. A friend calls you up and says, I've got great news. I just got promoted to CFO. After you say congratulations, what's the first piece of advice that you would give that person?
Make sure you have a good team underneath you. You are only as good as your team, so make sure you have the right level of skill sets and the people who are going to embrace the culture you're trying to build as well.
I'm Lisa Abramowitz. This is Bloomberg.
Game here is understanding. These digital assets have the ability to change the payment landscape of the world, and we need to be ready. We, the regulators, the world needs to be ready for a new wave of technology.
Stablecoins are almost entirely used in the mechanisms of trading in cryptocurrencies. What we saw is the opportunity for digital assets broadly, stablecoins in particular, to be used as a medium of exchange outside of the crypto world, what is today the fiat currency world. At some point, I think these digital asset wallets will be big enough and people will be comfortable enough using them. I think we'll have a flip from conventional payment mechanisms into stablecoin-based mechanisms.
Does that mean banks such as yourselves issuing stablecoin?
We could. We are issuing Hong Kong dollar stablecoins today. We're in a sandbox for tokenized bank deposits in Hong Kong. We're effectively issuing tokens related to trade finance in Singapore. So it's all on the table, but we're always going to tie it back to what our clients want and need. Because if we don't get that one right, the rest doesn't matter.
The market capitalization of both type of instruments, crypto and digital assets, are both very low. Stablecoins today have $20 billion of flows a day. It's less than 1% of the flows of the payment system in the world. But because they have the ability to be very helpful in use cases, particularly in retail to begin with, but then potentially on the wholesale side, I think we will see a lot more of them.
Asia is at the forefront of some of the world's biggest stories. I'm Sherry-Yan in Tokyo.
And I'm Heidi Stradwatts here in Sydney where the trading day begins. We're here in the center of all the action to get you set up with the numbers, news and knowledge you need for the day ahead.
The demand is indeed recovering. We've been waiting for this moment.
The opportunity of the century.
Join us on Bloomberg The Asia Trade. Weekdays only on Bloomberg TV. Context changes everything.
It's the world's second largest economy with a growing influence in global affairs. Bloomberg The China Show brings you the unmatched expertise you need to keep track of breaking news, in-depth market analysis, and the most influential newsmakers in and around China.
We need to do more to engage the market more. We're risk on. I think we caught a little sweet spot.
Massive savings right now.
It's already a different game.
Bloomberg The China Show. Weekdays around the world, right here on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute political news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Tyler Kendall in Washington, and this is Bloomberg.
Tune in to Bloomberg Business Week Daily.
We gotta talk crypto.
From the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead.
What's the conversation around your company?
Bringing you insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy.
Planning very big things.
A new level of premium.
Plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens.
The floodgates of innovation are going to open up.
You can't fake passion. You either are or you aren't.
Bloomberg Business Week Daily, only on Bloomberg.
From the beating heart of global finance, economics and politics, and wherever newsmakers are moving markets, Bloomberg brings you conversations that allow for deep discussions and important insights. What do you think the future is for inflation? Is this new normal? Are markets too optimistic? How do you worry about the things that are outside your control? How does the current fighting completely stop? I'm Francine Lacqua, and this is The Pulse, every weekday only on Bloomberg.
on this edition of Next Africa. The continent's booming tech ecosystem, with the rise of several unicorns in recent years, the startup community is finding its feet. FinTech leads the charge with 2 IPOs on the continent for the first time in more than 5 years, signaling growing confidence in the scalability of African tech. We speak with AI-powered firm Optasia on its expansion push and with unicorn Flutterwave on how it's positioning for growth. Plus, bridging the digital divide from the startup helping to bring affordable and reliable internet to townships, to the leaders looking to telecom infrastructure to build AI growth, how the players are building the backbone for Africa's tech revolution. Welcome to Next Africa. I'm Jennifer Zabasaja. Africa's tech ecosystem is thriving. The continent has produced several unicorns, and the startup scene is also steadying after a few rocky years. New data shows that venture activity is slowly recovering and settling into a more stable rhythm. While it's not the explosive growth we saw in the boom from years back, data from Avca shows investor appetite is growing, albeit with a more cautious and focused approach. Regionally, we're also seeing the map of tech investment evolve. While Southern Africa leads in total capital raised, West Africa remains the busiest hub for deal making. But some of the most interesting shifts are happening in East Africa. Over the last decade, Rwanda has been positioning itself as Africa's testbed for technology. From drone delivery to electric transportation solutions, the country is quickly becoming a launchpad for the next wave of African innovation. Bloomberg's Andiro Oganga reports.
Zipline is one of Rwanda's biggest tech breakthrough stories. What started as a small drone pilot in Muhanga is now a global logistics leader. It launched Africa's first aerial delivery network, modernizing access to blood supplies and medicine across rural Rwanda. Today, Zipline operates across 5 African countries and into food delivery in the US.
We have so far delivered 20 million doses of vaccine. And the drone really supports in vaccine delivery because it can reach even in places where there are no hospitals. It can reach in hard-to-reach places and make sure that we avoid to have zero-dose children.
At the heart of Kigali City Center is Norscan, a startup hub that is leveraging on Rwanda's testbed ecosystem to launch businesses into East Africa and beyond.
Norscan House Kigali supports 300 funds through community, networking, and access to capital, while its investment vehicle manages $208 million backing high-growth African startups. Fixer, an HR fintech, has raised over $1 million while piloting at Norscan, and Edencare, an insurtech company, used Rwanda as a testbed environment to refine its health insurance product before scaling regionally.
Let's say if it was taking you 3 years to get your license to operate, that is 3 years where you're not operating. If you get it in 6 hours, you can already start to work on your solution.
Despite the success stories, the industry still faces challenges such as limited technical expertise, a small domestic market, and the difficulty of funding innovation at an early stage. In order to compete with Africa's tech hubs in South Africa and Kenya, Rwanda is capitalizing on the gaps in the market, such as an unfavorable policy environment and tight regulation to attract early-stage startups.
The intention we've made as a proof of concept hub is to say, let's not wait until everything is in place. If it's a regulation that is missing, are we able to build one as we test and pilot some of these applications?
When Zipline arrived in 2016, Africa had never seen drone delivery, but Rwanda's unique approach to regulation made it the perfect testing ground.
There were no drone regulation at the time, and our industry was falling across multiple regulators, but Rwanda was like, if we don't have this regulation in place, we will learn together.
The bet is paying off. In 2023, Rwanda received $107 million in foreign private inflows, accounting for 12% of the country's total foreign private investment. Today, the percentage has grown to 18%. The government hopes to leverage this momentum in its long-term efforts to establish Rwanda as a leading tech hub.
What's also most interesting is not that Zipline was able to scale out of Rwanda. What's interesting is that because of the faith and the bet that we put on Zipline, We created the right policy and regulatory environment, and today we have over 10 drone companies.
Rwanda's favorable policy is moving beyond tech into adjacent sectors. Authorities stopped registering internal combustion engine motorbikes, which account for more than half of all vehicles in the country. The green shift is aimed at cementing demand for early-stage e-mobility adoption. Ampersand and Spiro, two startups known across East Africa for their growing fleet of e-bikes, are setting the example for the race to rev up Rwanda's tech hub ambitions.
I asked Dipali Nangia, partner at Speed Invest, to help unpack Africa's funding landscape and what the next wave of investment could look like. Here's what she told us.
The models that we are seeing right now that are super interesting on the lending side, obviously AI is going to have a big impact, as you know. If you can convert some of this unstructured data to structured data using AI, you can use the data for better underwriting and more fraud prevention, as well as personalized payment plans, right, leading to more financial inclusion. On the payment side, we've also seen a lot of stable coins, as I'm sure you've heard. You know, stable coins are becoming more and more prominent, and for, you know, African freelancers to get paid for the work for some of the American companies that they're doing, or for African exporters to get paid in stable coins, it reduces some of the currency volatility that are inherent in some of the local economies. So, you know, on the credit as well as the payment side, we are seeing lots of interesting innovation. On the infrastructure side, growth capital and equity capital is always slightly harder to get as the companies grow, and we're seeing lots of models around, you know, interesting things around securitization, which would unlock more equity, or credit against stablecoin, for instance, which would unlock more debt. So lots of really interesting innovation coming out of Africa, so very excited about it.
Are you seeing the same level of activity, I guess, as we could call it, when it comes to exits for some of these companies that you're investing in?
I mean, to be honest, Jennifer, exits is always a very interesting topic, right? Whether it's Europe or Africa, you know, it's a fragmented continent, as you can imagine. But if you think about exits, you know, most exits, at least for venture capitalists, will come from M&A, right? M&A from the domestic market. Africa, of course, has seen some exits and from international players, which is always interesting. I think the largest exit, InstaDeep, was also BioNTech, you know, an international player. Paystack was bought by Stripe, an international player. Last year, we saw some Latin American companies come into Africa, such as Nubank. You know, they bought a stake in TimeBank, which, as you know, in South Africa, which is super interesting. Maybe at some point, it's an exit for TimeBank, you know, to Nubank. But the big question in my head always as an investor is, what is this exit value tap out at? Is it 300 million? Is it 400? Is it 500 on the M&A side? And of course, we also have public markets, as you know. We've seen in the, you know, in South Africa again, which is a very, I think, the most buoyant exit market. You've seen Optasia just recently go public at a really good valuation. So, you know, that is interesting. You've seen an exit in an IPO in Morocco also earlier this year. So as an investor, exit is always a difficult question, but we as investors think about exit from day one. You know, when we're investing in a company, we're thinking about who can we help them exit to. We are always building relationships with corporate LPs. You know, we have a large LP network at Speed Invest, which is corporate, or with Middle Eastern, you know, investors, to see, can they come in? Can some of the Americans come in? We had, you know, a Move in our portfolio that got funded by Uber. So we are constantly thinking about, you know, how can we catalyze more international players and catalyze more capital and exits in Africa.
Bloomberg is looking for entrepreneurs, innovative thinkers, and barrier breakers for the second edition of the Africa Startups to Watch list. The project seeks to showcase the smartest ideas and founders from all over the continent. The companies will be unveiled in the first quarter of 2026 and will be profiled on Bloomberg TV and our other platforms. Just scan the QR code on your screen to send us your application. After the break, fintech remains at the heart of Africa's digital revolution, driven by rising mobile adoption and strong demand for financial inclusion. We hear from Flutterwave, Africa's most valuable unicorn, on its path to profitability. Plus, Optasia, the AI-powered fintech that made a blockbuster debut on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange in November. My conversation with CEO Salvador Anglada next.
key investors, top executives, global innovators. Join me for in-depth conversations with the biggest newsmakers on the day's top stories.
The economy has been doing well. That does not tell you what the future is going to be.
We are taking a step-by-step approach, a very systematic approach with India.
This is a time to put a little more defense into your portfolio.
Insight with Haslinda Anand, only on Bloomberg.
Middle East and Africa. Vibrant resources and high-yield investment opportunities abound. Join me on Horizons Middle East and Africa for the stories, newsmakers, and insight from this exciting region. Now weekdays, only on Bloomberg.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute geoeconomic news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Bonnie Quinn in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and this is Bloomberg.
Welcome back to Next Africa. I'm Jennifer Zabasaja in Johannesburg. Africa's fintech sector has seen remarkable growth over the past decade. It's now a key pillar of Africa's tech economy, reshaping how people access and use financial services. According to a McKinsey report, fintech revenue in Africa will reach $47 billion by 2028, a sign of just how fast the ecosystem is expanding. One standout in this momentum is Optasia, an AI-powered fintech firm that made a successful debut on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange in November. I spoke with Group CEO Salvador Anglada on the company's expansion plans.
I mean, we are in 38 countries, but if you think about the population that is underserved from a banking perspective or from a financial service perspective, there are more than 1.7 billion people in the world. So even if we are quite extended our presence, there is still only in Africa there are 54 countries and we are only in 20 countries. So the expectation is, of course, to continue expanding in those countries. Also, we are opening up our presence in Asia, in countries like Philippines, Indonesia, or Malaysia. Very interesting for us. We serve today 130 million active customers, but the goal will be in the next 3 to 5 years to duplicate this amount, hopefully to be in 80-85% of the countries in Africa, because I mean, for them, sometimes it's the only formal way to access to credit.
When it comes to fintech in Africa, no conversation is complete without mentioning Flutterwave. It's the continent's most valuable unicorn, valued at more than $3 billion. The Lagos-based firm operates in over 30 countries and processes more than 500,000 payments every day. I spoke to Flutterwave CEO Olubenga Abula about the company's path to profitability and its plans for an eventual IPO.
2026 for us is the year that everything just comes together, right? We're not just moving money. The last decade, literally, we've been doing the race for Africa's growth, right? And the future of Africa, in our opinion, is not